To ex-pastor Kevin Wesley, I commend you, I honor you, I thank you. Let's talk. Good evening, everyone. It is me, the fabulous Leo Brown, and I am back on here once again in YouTube universe, giving, of course, my opinion, my thoughts, my whatever on, I don't want to say trending topics, but I think on things that are topical. So last night, I was going through my comments, and somebody asked me, they said, well, are you going to do a video response to the man that decided to, the man that's now an ex-pastor, he decided to quit Christianity because he found that it wasn't true. It didn't ring true. So I had seen the video around, but I had never really, discussed it, or I shouldn't say that. I didn't watch it. So I was like, okay, I heard about it. You know how you hear about things on a blip or a headline, but you don't really pay attention to it. So as I delved more into it, I found out that the pastor's name, or the ex-pastor, I should say, is Kevin Wesley. And I watched the video, and I thought the video was great. And it actually made me think about, it made me think about my own spiritual awakening and spiritual journey. Personally, and this is just, from me to Dr. Wesley. I don't know why I keep calling him Doctor, but to Mr. Wesley, if he watches my little corner of YouTube land. I actually commend him, and I thank him, and I really do thank him for being honest, not only with us, the community, the public, but with himself, because I think it's very difficult for a lot of African Americans to admit, you know what, maybe there is something deeper that I don't understand. Maybe there is something that, instead of me being trained, to know Christianity and to know God and what have you, or our version of that, our version of the divine. I commend him for saying, it didn't speak to me. It doesn't sit well with me. I can't deal with the hypocrisy. Spiritually, it doesn't work for me. Mentally, it doesn't work for me anymore. Emotionally, it doesn't work for me. And it made me think about, for me, my own spiritual journey, my own spiritual awakening, and how it took me years. Because let me just give you a little insight on me. I was born and raised Christian. I was born and raised, brought up in the Deep South from Alabama, a Southern Belle all day. And, I shouldn't say I grew up in church. I wasn't a PK kid, but I grew up around it. Enough to know, I know a lot about Kojic. I know a lot about the apostolic churches. In fact, I was baptized at an apostolic church. And it wasn't until maybe high school that I really started to, not experiment, but I started to really doubt my faith and even the people in it. Because what I saw around me was a lot of hypocrisy. I saw a lot of fakeness. I saw a lot of negativity, to be honest. I saw a lot of evilness, to be quite frank about it. And I saw a lot of brainwashing. And it was very cliquish, because it was like, well, if you don't fit what we fit, or if you don't believe as we believe, or if you don't follow our rule, whether you are Baptist, Lutheran, Pentecostal, whatever, then you are not. And I'm talking in particular Christian, because I don't really know much about, Judaism or Islam. I know very little, to be honest. Even though I think that every religion, including Christianity, has a beauty all its own. I really do. But I guess with the people, for me, and like I said, I'm only speaking for me in this instance, I saw things that I thought were it was wrong, and it didn't feel right to me. Because how can you act holier than thou in 1 minute on Sunday, but then Friday and Saturday you letting everybody, you know what I mean? You fucking the married pastor, and but you praise, you talk about how saved and sanctified you are and filled with the Holy Spirit. and you speak in tongues every Sunday, and you crying and falling out. But during the week, you acting a fool. You cutting up a whole fool. So I can understand that. I can understand why he left. I can understand, and I would imagine that him being a pastor, he probably saw some things that we as parishioners, as goers of church, don't see. The thing of it is, the pastors have kind of a more of an insider's view on what really happens in church, and it's not always pretty. It really is. I mean, let's be real. That's what Greenleaf is about. So when I was in high school, I think I was about 18. I discovered paganism. I discovered Wicca, and granted, I think I'd always been curious about paganism and witchcraft. I'd always been curious. I love to watch the Psychic Lens Network. And, I'd always been curious about metaphysical things. And I had a lot of metaphysical experiences growing up too. So, when I was 9, I lived in a haunted house. When I'm trying to remember, I think I was like 7. I lived in many, well, not many, but I lived in 2 locations that were, that had paranormal activity in them. And it wasn't fun for me, as a child. I've always had psychic experiences. I've always had dreams and, clairvoyance and clairaudience or precognition. That's always been within me. That's even in my family. My mother's clairvoyant. My sister is a dreamer, or she was. I don't know if she is anymore, but she was. And then with me, it was kind of a mix of everything. So I've always had, experiences with it, and I've always been intrigued by things that were different from my own faith. And I've been to crusades. I've been to the Benny Hinn. Trust me, I've been to the Benny Hinn crusades. I've been to. I didn't go to the TD Jakes. I was going to at one point. I came close, but I've been to the mega churches, so I know what that life is like, and I understand why a lot of African Americans stick to it, because it does give us, and not just African Americans, Latinos, Asians. I get why they stick to it, because it's community, it's family. In some instances, they may not have a family. So they gravitate to the church. And the church becomes their family, the church family. So I understand why a lot of people get offended. Case in point with the whole Kim Burrell, Shirley Caesar thing. I get why a lot of people were clapping at me and saying, like, well, you wrong and this and that. I understand that. You have a right to your opinion. I get it. So I do understand why some come in defense of their faith. Because for some, that's all they have. So I do understand that. And I think regardless of a religion, I do understand why some people don't do that. You know what I mean? So I do get it. But back to Kevin Wesley. I, for one, am very proud of him. I really am. I think it sounds like to me he's on a journey of truth. He's on a journey of self-enlightenment. And he's on a journey of self-empowerment. And you can't put anyone down for that. Now, what I don't like is the fact that because of him speaking out and saying, I was a pastor, this is what I found out. I started to do research on, on Christian faith, and I found out that it just didn't add up. It didn't make sense. What I don't like is the hatred that he's received. What I don't like is the fact that they suspended him from his job. I don't agree with that at all. I think you have the right. We live in a free country. You have the right. We live in a Christian nation. This is not a Christian country. I really want people to know that. But you have the right to believe as you want to believe. Just like you have the right to support Trump and his rhetoric, or Kim Burrell's, or Shirley Caesar's, or, or Adolf Hitler's, or, George Michael's, or Boy George's, or whomever. You have a right to believe and to express yourself in the way that you want to. But what you do not have the right to do is to express hate because someone refuses to conform to what you think they should believe. So I do applaud him for opening his mind. I do applaud him for beginning his spiritual journey and opening his heart and seeing that he is a part of the divine, that he is a part of consciousness, that he is God, quote unquote. And for me, I'm just going to say this. For me, God is a very universal term. For me, God is both male and female, light and dark. It's all about balance. For instance, when I first came to Wicca, the one thing that was hard for me was, or Wicca paganism. The one thing that was really difficult for me in the beginning was seeing the divine as a feminine, as a woman. That was difficult for me. And you would think, well, you one of the biggest queens there is. How can you not see God as a woman? Excuse me. How can you not see God as a woman? Well, you have to understand, being raised, and excuse me, I have to pull up my chair. There we go. Being raised the way that I was, being raised somewhat in church, it was difficult for me because I was like, well, all I know is Jesus, the Holy Spirit. I know, and for me, in the beginning, I was very much still attached to my Christian roots. For a long time, I was a Christo pagan. If you don't know what a Christo pagan is, look it up. Because I was still holding on to my faith and saying, well, can we have both? Because what I saw in paganism was the similarities, the parallels, and I still see that. I still see the parallels between Christmas and the winter solstice, between Easter and the spring equinox, between May Day and Beltane. I still see the parallels. I don't see differences. I really don't, because really and truly, we really aren't that different, regardless of what we may say. And I think what makes us different is we may put a different name or a different face. We may worship in a different way. But really, we really are not that different. And we really aren't. So, I definitely can understand where he's coming from, because like I said, it was hard. And I would imagine that for him, it was hard for him to let go of what he had been taught, to find out that the reason why a lot of our ancestors, many of our ancestors, were enslaved in the first place was because we were scripts of everything. And it's not just us. It wasn't just us. It was the Native Americans too. It was so many people that were, too countless to name, that were enslaved and told to, okay, well, either you become homogenized and quote unquote white, or you die. You know what I mean? I get it. I get that conforming thing. So I definitely can understand where he's coming from. Definitely. But for me, it was really difficult at first, because as I said in previous videos, and even today, I still like gospel. I still like Yolanda Adams and the Clark sisters, and I like, and more, and you know what it is really? For me, it's not really about the people, it's the message. If it's inspiring, if it's empowering, if it's motivating, if it's spiritually uplifting, if it gives me hope, if it gives me a boost of energy, a boost of confidence, why not groove to it? There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. But I also love my chants. I love to pray to my gods and my goddesses. I love to read my cards. I even have my cards here. See? Even when I first started going into the profession of being a psychic, which was at 21 years old, I was scared of it, because I was like, well, oh my God, isn't this demonic? Isn't this, the devil's way, and blah, 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 blah. Or even when I started to embrace mediumship, when I started to embrace spiritual growth and things like that, it was difficult for me. It was very hard. And in some ways, I will admit this, it still is, because I'm going to be very frank, you never stop growing. And I really thank Kevin for, or I shouldn't call him Kevin because I don't know him personally, but I thank Mr. Wesley for being so honest. I thank him for being so real. I thank him for being free, for showing us what freedom is. You can look at him and tell that he feels better. He doesn't feel so bound. He doesn't feel so, like he has to conform. He feels like, what, I can do and be who I am, who I've always been. And he also gives me Shango tea too. He really does. I look at him and I see Shango all through him. Shango or either Eshu. I just see that. But, You know, he really does. And I like the fact that he's now trying to, he's evolving. And I think that's what's scary for a lot of people. Let's be real. We don't like to evolve. We don't like change. None of us do. You know, I've said this a million times and I will say it again, even with me. You know, I don't like change, but change is inevitable. It is a part of life. You're going to change. You're not going to be the size you were at 15 and you're now 25. You're not going to be the size you were at 25 and you're now 35. That's just not the way life works. So I applaud him for being honest. And I think what he's trying to do, I don't think he's trying to convert people. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to say to people, look, all you need to do is open a book and think for yourself. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to understand where I'm coming from. You don't even have to like me. But think. Look at what's going on in the world. Look at how you, even though you may feel small, but look at how you make such a great impact in the world. Imagine how that would be if you were free of negative spiritual influences, if you were free of dogma, if you were free of, control by religion, by faith. And I've never understood that. Why would you want to be in a faith that controls you? I've never understood. That's why I don't understand how some, especially gay black men, I don't understand how you can be so ingrained in church and go to convocation in these conventions every year when some will get up in these pulpits and talk about you like a dog, but once that's over and done, y'all in the hotel room fucking. I've never understood that to me. I've never understood that fear of not wanting to be yourself. But once again, it all goes, excuse me, it all goes down to, or not goes down, it all comes back to, being afraid to face the truth. Not only about spirituality, but about yourself. Because there are many roads to the divine. Paganism is just one of them. You know, paganism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Shintoism. There's so many different roads and faiths. Native American shamanism. There's Norse shamanism. There's all different types. No one is greater or better or less than the other. Even when it comes to Christianity and the monotheistic religions, they're no better than anyone else. And if anything, they're very well connected to one another. They all are. You just have to do your research. Google is your friend. Learn about your faith. Learn about why you worship what you worship. What are you praying to? And I think that's really what he's actually trying to tell people. He's saying, what are you doing? Think about what you do. Think about the things you say. Think about how you affect people, because you don't know the impact that you might have on someone. So I applaud him and I thank him for his message. I thank him for his video. I am subscribed to his channel. I think he's great. I do. I like him a lot. And personally, I would love to reach out to him and have a one-on-one conversation with him. I think if anyone could find a way for him to either see this or for he and I to have a discussion, I would love to do that. Because trust me, it took me a minute. And I will say this, even in Wicca, because Wicca, I love Wicca. I do. I very much love it. Wicca for me is my foundation. But the one issue I had with Wicca for me was I saw no one in the pantheon aside from the Greek. And that was where I started first. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, because I started with Changing Woman. And if you know, if you are of Navajo or Native American tradition, you know who that is. Changing Woman was my first goddess I was ever. Well, no, let me go back a little bit further than that, because first it was Aradia, who I love and revere very much and honor very much. And she and I had the same birth date. Then it was Changing Woman, and then it was Aphrodite, and then it was Hephaestus, and so on and so on and so forth. And I still worship. I'm polytheistic, so I still worship and honor and revere those gods and deities very much. But the one issue that I constantly ran into was that I found no one who looked like me. If you get what I'm saying. I found no one who, I found no one who honored my blackness, my my African descent. I just couldn't, and it bothered me because I was like, well, I know there are, and even when I would go, because I do go to, uh, I do go to events and things like that in the pagan community. And now I'm seeing it, which I think is fantastic. I'm seeing more people of color. It's wonderful. But for a long time, I didn't see many. For many years. And it always bothered me because I was like, I know I'm not the only one who feels like this. Why are there not more people who look like me, who are more melanated? Because we all have melanin. Everybody does. So we're going to stop the debate today. Everybody has more melanin in them than the next. Or we just have more melanin than the next person. But we all have melanin in our skin. So, but, I could never find anyone who looked like me, who was black and beautiful and proud and honored their ancestry. And also, I'll be honest, I didn't know my ancestry. I didn't know my history at the time. And there's still things about my history and ancestry that I don't know, just on a personal level. Like I'm learning about, my grandpa, my grandmother, my great-grandmama. I'm learning about our pathologies and our generational curses and things of that. And granted, in any family, it's not pretty, but, I didn't know about my history, really. I didn't know that the good ship Jesus, I didn't know about that, led by the Spanish and the Portuguese. And I don't fault the Spanish and Portuguese, the descendants of that, because it wasn't their fault. I didn't know what it meant to be truly conscious. And I think that's what what Kevin is trying to say. And there's a big difference, and let me just say this. There's a big difference between being conscious and being racist. Because a lot of people, and I'm going to say it, a lot of folks in the conscious community, and yes, I'm talking to you, Dr. Umar. Yes, I'm talking to you, Dr. Oh, what is his name? Seti, that's his name. Mr. Seti. Mr. Johnson, Dr. Umar Johnson, the hemoteps. First of all, and I had to have a moment with that. First of all, I'm so tired of that. I am so tired of that. I understand you having pride in who you are and where you come from. You're supposed to. But when you want to negate an entire race of people and you want to fill your followers with hate and with hurt that you've carried over because, I don't know, you never made it into the rap industry because that's what you look like in that video. And y'all know what video I'm talking about with Mr. Dr. Johnson. And then, Mr. Seti, who, honey, is doing all kinds of, things. I don't trust you to leave me to go across the street, let alone to lead my people anywhere. And for the last time, we are not the lost tribe of it. We are not Israelites. We are not Hebrews. I am half Jewish. I am not part of the lost tribe of Israel. At least I don't think so. Okay? I'm just saying. I refuse to buy into that. I don't feel that there is no race that is more superior than the other. If you feel that way and you think that way, you are no better than the white supremacists and the white nationalists that want to eradicate us. You're no better than them. That's just me. You can still have pride in your race and pride in your culture and pride in who you are without being an asshole. Just saying. And stop being so fucking transphobic and homophobic. I really need people to stop that. And why are you so afraid of femininity in men? It happens. There are gay conscious men. Trust me. I am one of them. And woke don't mean, well, I'm woke. Stay woke. Ooh, the white people. Woke. No, stay woke to everything. Not just white people. It's not just white people, honey. It's sometimes our own people. Your own people will run you down further than a stranger will. So let's not go into that. I do believe in unity. I do believe in black love. I do believe in all those wonderful things. But I don't believe in being anti-white, anti-gay, anti-Jew. I don't believe in any of that. You know what I mean? I live with 2 white people. Love them dearly. They're my family. I see the differences. And I think that's what we need to acknowledge. Excuse me. We need to acknowledge the differences. We need to acknowledge that, yes, we're not similar. Yes, we have differences. But from there, we need to create an honest dialogue of healing, not of dissension, not of anger. And then from there, we need to move forward. And that's the only way we can do it. But unfortunately, we don't want to do that. And every person, regardless of race, should know their history and their culture. That's important. That's important for everybody. Whether you are black, white, Latino, Chicana, Peruvian, Irish, Bulgarian, it does not matter. You need to know about your history. That's so important because that's part of who you are. So I don't really subscribe to the racist conscious community because that's what I'm gonna call it. You're no better than the white supremacists. I'm sorry, not all of you, because I know there are quite a few people who are very conscious, who are very metaphysical, who are not homophobic, who are not anti-white, who are not afraid of difference, who don't want it to be where we are superior and they're the lesser. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that some people don't deserve to get clapped back on. Some people do. I think we do need to. I think the country as a whole, the world, needs to apologize for the atrocities that have happened to many nations. Not just black nations, but every nation, honestly. We all have blood on our hands. No one is clean, including myself. So I don't agree with that. But I think with Mr. Wesley, I think what he's trying to do is educate. I think he's trying to liberate. I think he's trying to come to an understanding, not just for his people, but for himself. And he's also saying, look, I've been there. I know what church is like. It wasn't for me. And as he said in his video, if you dismiss me because I have a difference of belief, and I don't believe as you, then you really weren't my friend to begin with. And that goes for me. If you dismiss me because of what I'm saying here, then you really weren't a supporter of me in the first place. I'm just saying, and I've always been that way. I've never been, I'm very much tolerant of people of other faiths. I have many friends of many different faiths, of many different cultures, and I love them all. And I take something from each one because they all help me to be me. So I don't view it as, oh my God, you're less than and I'm better than you. No, we're no better. We're equal. And we have differences. We have, differences, but we also have parallels and things that actually can bring us together instead of tearing us apart. So I commend Mr. Wesley. I really do. I commend him very much. I would love to sit down and have a dialogue with him. I think what he's doing is the right thing. I think this is only the beginning for him. I really do. Because it is a lifelong journey. When I first discovered African deities like Yemaya and Oshun and Shango and Osi and Oya, I was like, whoa, what is this? Because I was used to the Greek. Hecate and, Venus and Mercury and and Pegasus and Pegasus the unicorn and Ceres, and I love them all. I love them dearly. And that's the thing about it. You can love more than one. That's what being spiritual is about. Spiritual is not about just subscribing to one, or being, I call it not call it, but being polytheistic. I'm a polytheistic person, when it comes to my religious faith. So what's wrong with that? If I can love my aunts, my uncles, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, I can love Venus and Vulcan. And I also can love Oshun and Ogun and Osi and Oya and Shango. And even bring them together at times. I don't think you should mix pantheons, but, I think that they all work together as one. Because they're all different faces and aspects of the divine, which, in my opinion, doesn't have a name. So, and like I said, this is my opinion. But, I commend him. Excuse me, I commend him. I applaud him. I think it's great. And I really do hope that he does more research. I hope that he does more work for himself, with himself, and on himself. Because I'm going to tell you, Mr. Wesley, it is a lifelong journey and you're just beginning. But I thank you for helping others, like myself, to come forward and talk about our journeys and, our awakenings, and also for helping a lot of people to start their questioning. Because let's be honest, I think in monotheistic religions, I know you're not taught to question anything, and that's regarding if you're Catholic, if you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, you're taught to not question anything. Even though if you look at the Bible and you look at, say, something like Noah and the Ark, that's based off the Epic of Gilgamesh. If you look at Jesus, Jesus is one of the many dying and rising gods. We can go with Prometheus and Adonis and Osiris, and there's so many. So just do your research, and there's nothing wrong with that. Even if you love your faith, you love your church, there's nothing wrong with you looking outside the window and looking at other things. It doesn't mean that you are questioning or not believing in your faith. You're adding to it. To me, I agree, or I view faith as a house. You're just adding many different rooms. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, Mr. Wesley, I thank you so much for allowing me to share my story, some of my journey, and for others to do that and to start their journey of questioning, of insight, of tapping into their intuitive gifts. I think it's wonderful. So I wish you the best of luck. These are my thoughts on it. And if you agree with me, even if you disagree with me, leave your comments below. And I will talk with you all later. I love you all very much. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I will talk with you very soon. Have a great weekend. Love you all. Bye-bye.